it just absolutely goes without saying that I'm a huge fan of Witt Lowry. And you guys would know that if you've watched some of my older documentaries, Call of Duty ones that I made, I sampled his music in there a lot. In fact, I found Witty on YouTube in, I would estimate, probably 2014, at the time when the Kindest Regards album was coming out. Now, I was under the impression, based on his YouTube channel, that that was his first album. Turns out that's not true. He actually came out with an album in 2012 called Headphone Hero, which I discovered on the internet a year or two ago and downloaded a copy of. He had kind of made an attempt, I guess, to hide it. So through some back alley forums, I was able to find a copy of it. However, now it's also on the Genius site, so I will put the link for that down there in the description if you guys want to listen to it. But today, we're going to break down the Headphone Hero album that got Witty his start. To put this into perspective, this album came out in 2012 when I believe Witt Lowry was 21 years old. Now, some of these songs reference him being in high school, or at least seem to. Some of them reference him being in college. He did go for 2 years for a graphic design degree. And then some of them reference him looking back on college. And it kind of gives me a feeling that maybe he made this album over the course of maybe a senior year of high school all the way through college, just this one album with the 14 tracks. I'm not 100% sure on that, but that's the impression that I get from listening to it. Now for the feel of this album, well, there's a lot of songs that are sampled in here. I would say about 4 or 5 of the 14 songs have samples of other songs in, which isn't necessarily bad, but isn't necessarily good either. One of my favorite Witty songs is You, which samples the Taylor Swift song You, which seems like a really weird mix considering, you know, this guy's rap song being mixed with this Taylor Swift, not the new Taylor Swift, the old Taylor Swift. Just doesn't seem like it would go together, but You is a great song from Kindest Regards, and it really builds upon the way he had sampled in these first 4 or 5 songs in this album, which are, again, just okay. It has more of a pop feel to it. Now, there's also a fair amount of love songs in here. Some of them are clearly based on his experiences. They're him telling it from his point of view, his relationship with a girl. But then there's also other songs mixed in that talk about a guy. And you don't know if that guy is him or if it's somebody else and it's from like a third-person perspective. He's done these kinds of songs before, and I've really enjoyed them. I did enjoy these, but just because they're such emotional, storytelling type songs, so not something I would listen to repeatedly, but I enjoyed listening to them for the one time, and I think that it was probably the overall highlight of the album. I will have those song names on the screen. This is the real kicker. There's a song in here called Thoreau, which in my opinion is his attempt at literally making a party anthem. And in my opinion, it turns out terrible. But the most, shocking thing, I guess, to me, is it says the song was produced by Calvin Harris. And if, you listen to any popular music on the radio today or in the last, 2-3 years, you probably know who Calvin Harris is. He's like a big deal, and to see Witty in 2012 be able to have a song produced by Calvin Harris, assuming that it is the Calvin Harris again, is really shocking. Now, I took a look at Calvin Harris's Wikipedia page to decide, when did Calvin Harris blow up? When did he become a big deal? Well, I got the impression that he started to blow up in 2011 when he went on tour with Rihanna. So a year later, to have made a song with a small artist in Witty just seems very unlikely, which goes back to my theory that he could have made this album over the course of 3 years. Maybe that was a song that was made earlier on, maybe in high school, his first year of college or something, before Calvin Harris broke it big. That would make sense to me. Otherwise, assuming that, again, this is the same Calvin Harris and there's not 2 of them, it's just really shocking to me that he got that level of talent in his first album. Now, one of my favorite things about some of his songs is he hasn't been scared to reference, Nintendo characters, Pokemon, things of that nature. And he does that probably even more in this album. I'll give you a little example. Feeling like Luigi, 'cause I'm always getting one up, and I'm feeling like Bowser spitting fire. Now, again, as far as producers, Jahil Beats actually produces 2 of these songs, so I think it's pretty neat. You've probably heard some of his songs before. They always start with the Jungle Beats Holla At Me sound bit, usually, and he produced 2 of the songs on this album, those being the original Peace of Mind. I know Peace of Mind 4 just came out, as well as the song Boss. And then the last connection I wanted to draw is he tells his life story, in a way, in the song The Lights. Now, he mentions in the song Kindest Regards, in his second album, Kindest Regards, he mentions that's the second time that he's rapped to tell that story. Now, every time I'd heard Kindest Regards before, having never heard Headphone Hero, I was always really confused by what he meant. I just assumed maybe there was references to it again in Kindest Regards, but it was the title track, so that didn't really make sense. Turns out that The Lights is actually the original song that tells sort of his life story. So if you're into listening to that, kind of getting a feel for that, that would definitely be one must-listen song. If you're a Witty fan, you want to hear that story, but it's not the best song. It's not something that he would put out today, for sure. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this perspective and this look at Headphone Hero 6 years after release, at which point, he's released, I think, 3 or 4 full albums. They just keep getting better and better, and he's came so far. So it was great to look at this and, see how it wasn't bad, but it was definitely really, really painfully average, whereas now I think he's an exceptional artist that will only continue to rise. Thank you guys for watching. I'm Bailey, and I will see you in the next video.